Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship. Oh, all right then. I was expecting something to happen then, but it didn't. It doesn't matter. Welcome to Hanover, welcome to Germany for a thrilling week of StarCraft 2 and some League of Legends. It's on the other channel, but that's fine. We've had a tremendous season. We've been through 5 countries. We've been through 3 continents. We've been all around the world, crowned some fantastic champions and some amazing games on the way. Before we get into today's games and our first game of the day, we have some people to introduce you to. But first, let's take a very quick look back at what happened at Katowice.
Always looking for an opening here, but suddenly heavily supply blocked as well. And the crowd once again trying to get behind their Polish player. Maybe, or looks like he's moving on from this point, Caldo.
What an onslaught. The third is gone and Mana is pushed beyond belief. He is down to 70 supply, 100 supply less than his opponent. He's trying to hold the natural somehow. He lost so many harvesters already. 24 have been killed. He's down to 37. He's pushing TLO back here, but the fight, I think this is already back in the game. The GG by Mana. It is Liquid TLO who takes the first best of 5. Enough stalkers to snipe them. Yoda is trying to make sure that there's not a lot of area effect damage by his opponent. Another storm, bam, 1, 2, 3, and those guys are immediately dead. Yoda dropping in supply, Party pushing his way. GG!
This is the grand final for StarCraft 2 at the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice.
And he forces the lift up. He kills off a lot of SCVs that are looking to retreat here. The Vikings trying to kill off as many of the costers as they can do, but there's a lot of bio coming in.
Oh my god, here it is, another storm, and this is the nail in the coffin. GG! And LGIM Spurs is the champion of the first major event in 2013 here in Poland, the IEM Katowice champion.
Yes, some fantastic memories there from Katowice, and all the way through the season there was Gamescom, Cologne of course, and of course Home Story Cups along the way, as well as Singapore. So a fantastic season, and it culminates right now here in Germany for the World Championship. Along the way there have been 2 men who have contributed a great deal to the Intel Extreme Masters and made it what it is today. It gives me great pleasure to welcome them to the stage. The Director of Pro Gaming from the Intel Extreme Masters, Mr. Michał Blickardt, and the Head of the Product Development at Intel for Intel Extreme Masters, Mr. George Wu. Morning. How you doing, George?
I'm doing great, Paul.
I should introduce you as the man that pays for all of this, right?
You can name me anything. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. What are you particularly looking forward to in the World Championship?
I think it's been a long season, a lot of hard work behind everything, and so we have a great lineup here, so I'm very excited. I think everybody's going to be having a great treat this week, watching a great competition, so very excited.
All right, well, thank you very much for your input and your help all through the season. Michał, it's been a long season. It's been a long couple of weeks, actually. You look tired, my friend, but it's been fantastic, and it must be great to see what's happened with the World Championship here.
I am fantastic, and I mean, I look at this trophy, it reminds me of all the work we've done, not only this season, but all the past seasons. We've got 15 names here, and on this stage, we will crown a guy who will have his own name, and on the other stage as well, we will crown another champion, and we're going to have 2 more names on the trophy. It's just fantastic, and just the fact that we get the privilege to be the guys that opened the new chapter of esports history with Heart of the Swarm, StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm, it couldn't be better for me this March.
What with the Polish thing as well? You've been to Poland finally. It's been a dream, a lifelong dream for you. We've come all the way through the season. I've got to ask you, is there a favourite? Is MC just going to come back and retain that trophy behind us?
I think it's, despite him being so, brave about his predictions, I think there's at least 5 people who could easily claim the title, and it's a new game, so I'm going to watch this tournament with curious eyes. I'm going to have this curiosity of, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, and neither does anyone else, and that's what makes it so special and so exciting.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. George Brew and Mr. Michał Blikas. Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the World Championship. Okay, you're very lucky on the StarCraft stage because you not only have one host, which is obviously me, but you have a hostess for the entire week of StarCraft 2. She's been here before. We love her to death. Please make some noise for Miss Rachel Quirico.
Thank you so much, guys. It is really, really good to be back here, back home on StarCraft. And you guys won't let me forget that this is where I got my start. So.
Absolutely, yeah. No, they'll keep reminding. There'll be a Reddit thread by the end of the day. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Paul. I haven't seen you in a while, and you've been doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but I'm so glad you're back here.
Yeah, all over the place, but right now in Hanover for the World Championship. It's going to be fantastic.
I'm so excited. The first Heart of the Swarm tournament, they're going to be playing on Heart of the Swarm Gold, which is, of course, post-beta. And we have 4 groups coming up of absolute powerhouses. Do you want to take a quick look?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at the groups and how they line up, the qualifiers for this particular tournament, of course. And there are 4 groups, as Rachel rightly said, 6 in each of those groups. The top 3 will go through. The top 1 will go straight through to the quarterfinals. The second and third will go into a playoff before going through to the quarterfinals. Group A, I'm going to say it looks stacked, but then every group looks stacked. But who's your favourite in Group A, Rachel?
Well, Group A has Parting. Parting, of course, won the Battle.net World Championship. He won the WCG World Championship, effectively making him the 2012 StarCraft World Champion. But we also have sLivco, who's a Russian favorite. Hasuov's in there, repping Germany. I really can't pick. Even Norchio is doing great.
Absolutely. Group B, just as well stacked, also has the other world champion in it from 2012, the Intel Extreme Masters world champion, MC. He's back for more.
Indeed, and the highest earner of the group, if you took a look at the Intel Extreme Masters graphics they put out before this tournament.
Okay, let's have a look at Group C and D. Just as stacked as the other 2 groups, frankly. Group C looks ridiculous, especially if you're a German fan with Zocker in there, or a Polish fan with Mana, or a Norwegian Snoot, and then Violet, your friend, your brother.
Violet, my brother from another mother there. That's who I'm going to be cheering for in Group C, but I'm going to have a really hard time with Group D because that is the foreigner favorite team for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Group D is a mess as far as fan favorites are concerned. Grubby in there, Dreams in there, Stefano's in there, TLO, and MVP and Golden. 3 Koreans, 3 Europeans. I don't think you could have got it any better. It looks unbelievable.
I'm really excited for these matches.
D, group of death, they call that.
Group D, Group of Death, is that what the D's for?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget, as we said as well, the bracket system's slightly different here. The top 3 will advance, but the top 1 goes straight through to the quarterfinals. The second and third have to play off.
Exactly, and we have some wonderful people guiding us through the event this weekend. So I'm going to hand it over to the first of them, Jorasar, who's going to be at the analyst desk.
All right, guys, welcome to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship. Thank you so much for that, Red Eye and Rachel. I'm Jorasar, of course, and I'm joined here by 2 incredibly talented pro gamers at the analysis desk this weekend. First of all, we have our American Terran. It is QXC.
Hey, guys.
And then over on my far side here, we have the wonderful Dutch Protoss. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Harsten.
Hello.
So an incredibly exciting week here at CeBIT, of course. 100 grand on the line, incredibly talented players, and this is the world's first Heart of the Swarm tournament. Guys, how do you feel going into this week?
I'm so excited. It's been a little bit sad since beta went down. Been kind of looking for things to do with my life, and now I found one. I found something to do while beta is down, and so have all of you. I'm so excited to see what these players are going to bring to the table.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I think it's the first major tournament. It's going to be sick. Lots of new strategies are going to be revealed, I feel like, and I'm especially curious what the Koreans will do, because they're all in the team houses practicing for GSTL off-season, which was Heart of the Swarm, of course. And
Yeah.
so I think they have really creative strategies already, MC being here, so we're going to see some innovative play.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, because I know some of these players, they didn't announce that this would be a Heart of the Swarm event until just a couple of weeks ago, and some of the players here have had Wings of Liberty events up until just very recently. So some people are definitely going to be going into this at a pretty significant disadvantage, not having that much time to practice, not having that much time to get ready, while other players have switched into Heart of the Swarm some weeks or even months ago.
Yeah, like from January on, some players have started playing, especially foreigners, Koreans practicing for GSL, and even Pro League, Wings of Liberty still. So yeah, I'm really curious. I'm really looking forward to see the foreigners play as well. Hazuops, Grubby, yeah, sLivco, and TLO. TLO always a very creative player.
I think TLO is probably one of the most important players to watch at this event in terms of new strategies, creativity. That's really where he's always shined, where he's always been the most fun to watch. And now with Heart of the Swarm, everything's kind of flipped up. Everything is upside down. I expect TLO to be able to navigate that very well.
Well, let's touch on that just a little bit. I mean, we have a lot of talented players, of course, in the pool here, but some of them have practiced Heart of the Swarm a lot more than others. We've had some of the Korean players, for example, play Wings of Liberty and GSL all the way up until the start of this tournament. So there are going to be very varying degrees of experience so far with Heart of the Swarm here. Aside from the players already mentioned, is there someone in particular that you think, actually, these guys might be the one to watch, he might actually win the tournament? Or is there someone you think would perform lower than expectations, possibly?
Well, I think both MVP and Sting are going to have a really good shot at winning the tournament. Sting winning Into Extreme Masters Singapore, and yeah, MVP, it's MVP, man. If he wants to win a tournament, he's going to win a tournament.
I think it's really hard to make predictions right now, just because we don't know how much each of these players has actually been practicing Heart of the Swarm. And I think that's the most important factor going into this event. Is not past results. It's not how good were you at Wings of Liberty. Yes, that helps. Yes, that's important. But if you do not know the new timings in Heart of the Swarm and what's been going around, you're not going to make it out of your group. There's just no way. There's just too much new stuff that will end the game before 10 minutes. You won't get a chance. You might have the best multitasking and the best mid and late game in the world, but if you don't know Heart of the Swarm, you're not ever going to get there.
No, I completely agree. And we're going to see a lot of those new timings at work. There will be games where, of course, players go down to stuff like this, and we'll be able to take you step by step through that, of course, here at the analysis desk as we move through. But an incredible weekend of games. We've seen the groups up on screen just a little bit earlier. 4 groups of 6 players, with the top 3 advancing, and of course the winner of each group going directly into the semi-finals. We touch a little bit on the players themselves, who we think might be going through. For example, MVP seems to be a pretty consensus favorite here to a lot of us. But I don't know if you guys were aware, we took a look at some interviews yesterday, especially the one from MC, mentioning how he thinks that the Zergs aren't going to have a very good time at this tournament. I was wondering, as a Terran and a Protoss here at the analysis desk, what you guys think of those comments.
Well, I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle for the Zerg, because Zerg always it's like the adaptive race. They have to react to timings most, and because there are so many new timings, it's going to be really hard for Zerg. So I think there are going to fall a few Zergs victim to new timings, but I'm not sure which Zergs that are going to be so.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. One of the most significant ways that the game has changed since Wings of Liberty is that Terran and Protoss have both gained a lot of new units and a lot of early and early mid-game timings. Reapers, Widow Mines, Hellbats. With Protoss, you have Oracles, you have the new Void Ray, you have Mothership Core, whereas Zerg's new options really don't appear until at least the 10 or 15 minute mark, with Viper, Swarm Host, the new Ultralist. And like you said, like a lot of what Zergs do in Wings of Liberty, a lot of what makes them so strong is not scouting is important, but also just knowing there is no timing before 6 minutes. There is no timing before 8 minutes. And now it's all backwards, it's all upside down, nobody knows. Is there a Hellbat timing at 8 minutes? There might be. But Do you know? You might not. It's going to be really hard for the Zergs to play the same kind of greedy macro style that they're used to.
Yeah, I think we're not going to see really quick third bases against Terran anymore, like with 4 queens, 6 queens even. It's going to be a lot harder with the Widow Mines, the Hellbats. I think we're going to see some safe 2-base play, maybe into Swarm Host, maybe into some Roach, or I'm not actually sure if Swarm Hosts are that good against Terran.
Swarm Host is more of a really specific, it's almost like an all-in strategy against Terran, and usually it's against mech. But even then, some people kind of played around with it, but it didn't seem too effective. It's more about TVZ, it's more about Vipers, and it's more about Ultralists. But I actually wouldn't be surprised if we saw the Zerg players doing 1 and 2-base all-ins in a lot of the games.
We could very well see that shortly. Of course, our first match is going to be sLivco, who will be taking on Lucifron. Now, sLivco, of course, previous sick nerd baller here at the Intel Extreme Masters Tournament, and Lucifron has been on an absolute tear recently in terms of his form. But enough about them for now, because we're going to be heading over to the main stage and Rachel Quirico to do some player introductions.
Thank you so much, guys. Without further ado, let's bring out the real stars of the show. Please welcome first to the stage, representing Carante, give it up for Lucifron. Excuse me, formerly representing, now representing Carante with Ozone Gaming Gear. Let's check out, we got Versus over here. We got some great sponsors on this guy. Now, let's bring out his Russian opponent, sLivco. All right, gentlemen, let's keep this short and sweet. Shake hands, and we'll get these games underway. Gentlemen, to your seats. Back to you guys at the analyst desk.
All right, guys, welcome back to the analysis desk here. We're going to be popping into game number 1 very shortly with sLivco versus Lucifron. Now, TVZ, pretty exciting to watch here. We were talking just a little bit about the effectiveness of Zerg units against Terran in Heart of the Swarm, and how a lot of those timings that we may need to watch out for aren't quite there and aren't quite worked out just yet. Is there anything in particular, given these two players' styles, especially sLivco as a huge macro player, that we should be looking out for here in these games?
I think one of the most interesting things in terms of strategy and style that we're going to see here is Lucifron going to play Bio, or is Lucifron going to play Mech? We've seen him do a variety of strategies. Recently in Wings of Liberty, he's been favoring Bio. We saw him play that almost exclusively at Katowice. But in the past, before that event, we did see Lucifron play a lot of mech. One of the strongest meching players in TVZ. And both of these styles have seen some improvements and some kind of, not like downgrades, but the Zerg has different and better responses in some ways. Vipers are very, very strong, though, against both Bio and mech. And Ultralists now do full damage against Marines and Marauders, making Bio much, much weaker against Hive Tech. Ultralist, the Ultralist ball is just so much stronger. And so we'll just have to wait and see what Lucifron's going to pick here, what he's feeling most comfortable with.
Yeah, I think recently in Ritmix or RSL, he's been playing mech against Zerg mainly. I think I saw 4 or 5 games of him playing mech, and it just looked amazing. Lots of Hellion run-bys, great tank positioning as always. So I'm really looking forward to see Lucifron play.
Yeah. A couple things for those of you who aren't too familiar with Heart of the Swarm. Big changes in this matchup. Burrow is now hatchery tech.
Yeah.
And that's pretty important. If we do it, it can be important because sLivco could do a Burrow Roach timing, and we might see him do some kind of Burrow play early on. Overlord speed is now hatchery tech. And so we may see sLivco, if he wants to get like a more information-heavy style, you can research that upgrade. You can research that before you head to layer, and then you can get so much information, get so much knowledge about what the Terran player is doing. On the Terran side, we now have Widow Mines.
Yeah.
They come out of the factory. You can produce them 2 at a time out of a reactored factory. They burrow. They cast a spell that does 125 damage to the primary target, 40 to the units around it. Yeah, 40 splash damage. And then it also does a bonus plus 35 to shields. Obviously, that's only relevant in TVP. Hellbats are a huge, huge change in this unit, in this matchup. Mostly when you mech, there are some bio Hellbat styles, but basically the Hellion can transform, and then it gains a higher damage output, smaller range, area of effect attack, and gets a little bit more health. And it'll be pretty interesting to see if and when we're going to see these players utilize some of these new units. Have you seen a lot of kind of Viper or Ultralisk in this matchup?
Not too much just yet. I've seen a reasonable number of quite quick actually Zerg games in ZVT where Hive Tech just doesn't quite get to be in full force. But of course, we've seen, for example, in some MLG showdowns recently, more and more like really nice late game Viper usage there as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that sort of a little bit of a shift, if you like, as timings in the early game get worked out a bit more, transfer to the tournament here. And I do predict that we should be seeing a healthy number of late game transitions.
Yeah, I think so. One thing that's kind of interesting is if for anybody who's watched some of the GSTL in the preseason Heart of the Swarm matches, we saw a lot of Zergs 1 and 2 base all inning.
Yeah,
Zergs just were not feeling comfortable dealing with the new timings, with the Widow Mines, Hellbats, Reapers. Proxy Reaper, also a very strong new strategy here. The Reaper no longer requires a tech lab. It's a little bit faster than it used to be. The speed upgrade has been removed. It no longer has its bonus damage against light.
Yeah.
And it also regenerates health when it's out of combat, and it has an additional 10 hit points. So it's a 60 hit point unit instead of 50. And so strategies like 8 Supply Depot, 8 Barracks, 8 Gas, Proxy Reaper Rush have become much more common. And it sounds like when I originally started that and I heard that strategy, it sounded ridiculous to me because I was thinking like a Reaper on 8 supply? But when you take away their bonus damage, they become kind of like tickle monsters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's because of the combat drugs, man. They're basically fighting drunk.
Yeah.
So the bullets don't actually do as much damage.
They
That's
just
the theory we came up with.
They basically can't aim anymore.
No, they can't. It's really sad, actually. But they are jacked up all the time, so it's all right.
Yeah, when they fly around, they kind of do this thing where they like tilt a little bit, and their pathing gets a little wavy, and then they fire their guns and like, whoa!
It glances off the armor somewhere before an Ultralisk chases it down.
And but with the introduction of some of these new Reaper strategies, we do see Zergs often not favoring Hatch first, which is really, really interesting and really different because all through Wings of Liberty, Hatch first was the thing. You try and you'd be like, hey, so what if you open pool first? Like, oh, shut up. Good joke. But now it's like, yeah, a lot of Zergs are opening pool first because getting that queen out is so important.
Yeah, they actually have been opening up pool first as well as with gas because of 2-Rex Reaper. 2-Rex Reaper really hard to shut down if you don't have any roaches or no speed links, especially speed links, very important. Because if there are 5 Reapers in your base, man, you're gonna lose a lot of drones.
Yeah, there's kind of 2 main responses to the Proxy Reaper. If you want to play macro style, you go for fast queens, no gas.
Yeah.
Because once you get a queen out, you can zone out the Reapers no problem. It takes like 3 or 4 Reapers to really fight a queen effectively. Add in some lings, and you're just not really going to be doing that much damage. If you want to play aggressive, you want to take map control, try and hit a timing before the Terran is able to transition out of Reapers, then you go for fast speed. Sometimes you do a Speedling Baneling bust, or you go for fast roaches. And so if Lucifron does go for some kind of Reaper play, we may see that out of sLivco, one of those 2 main options.
Now, it's interesting we should mention that as well because Lucifron, I mean, have you got to see many games of his played on Heart of the Swarm yet? Either of you? Is he favoring this sort of early game aggression?
I don't think I've seen any of these players in any Heart of the Swarm tournaments yet.
Nor sLivco nor Lucifron. No. I haven't seen any of them play, and I'm really curious because I know Lucifron recently went full time, so he's been playing a ton.
That's right.
Or
yeah.
I can imagine he's been playing a ton. He always already played a lot, even if he was in school, and now it's just going to be insane. He is really talented, and with the amount of time that he can put in now, I think he's going to shine like a bright star.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point because we've seen in the last month, I was at, I'm trying to remember, I was at doing the Vasicast Invitational, for example, and Lucifron it's like he transcended. He was on another level. I mean, the way, it wasn't just winning games or winning series, it was the way he was picking his opponents apart. It was so methodical, so clean, so ruthless. It was like he's stepped everything up a gear now. And I wonder, obviously it has something to do with him going full-time, but are we going to see him realize his full potential here in the first tournament, Heart of the Swarm? It's going to be very exciting to see how far he gets. but
for
sLivco
sure.
as well. I mean, traditionally very, very solid opponent. Macro style, of course, transitions very well into another game because your basic mechanics, you're so used to playing them game in, game out, that once you sort out incoming timing attacks from your opponent, you should be able to get into a rhythm where you can just really macro up. And I wonder how well sLivco will be able to do that against Lucifron here.
Yeah, I'm curious as well. I remember sLivco always used to favor the Infestor tech quite a bit, and with the Infestors getting a big hit in Heart of the Swarm, we could say. I'm really curious how he will pick it up, if he will play Muta, maybe Roach Hydra even. Roach Hydra into Ultra, but that's a bit of a iffy transition, I feel like.
Yep. And the what's changed a lot, like you said, macro style really carries over because it is a lot of the same muscle memory, a lot of the same timings and things. Yeah. But the big thing in Heart of the Swarm is it's more of a knowledge thing. It's like, it's not that you need the muscle memory, like you need to remember how to inject. It's just that you need to know at this time I have to build units because of Hellbats, or at this time I have to build a Spore Crawler because of possible Widow Mines. And once you make those adjustments, your macro style will transition very well, just like you said. And when you play that macro style in this matchup, generally, like Harstem was saying, you go into Roach Hydra, Vipers, Ultralisk, and then a lot of players have been favoring very fast Broodlord timings against Mech, and Mutaling, Baneling against Bio. Those are kind of like the main things. Generally, you don't see Mutas against Mech because of Thors and Widow Mines.
Yeah, but how does Bio Widow Mine work out against Mutas?
It's kind of a strange situation because if they don't have... The Widow Mine is probably the best example of a kind of like a tipping point unit, where if you have enough Widow Mines, you will dominate. You will destroy everything they have. They will have no way to sacrifice small units and get them to go off and then make a big engagement. If you don't have enough Widow Mines, Mutaling Bling will just run you over. Like the first 10 to 15 or 20 Speedlings will take the Widow Mine shots, and then it's just Mutas against Banelings and Speedlings, or sorry, Mutas, Baneling, Speedling versus Bio.
And that doesn't go well.
Bio does not, no, it does not go well. It does not go well at all.
It's a blender.
Yeah, it is. It really is a blender. The other thing is, especially on a map like, say, Daybreak, where you have two very distinct entrances. Once you're on 3 base, you have the entrance into the natural, the entrance into the third. If you can figure out where most of the Widow Mines are, then you have a huge advantage. Widow Mines are not really like siege tanks in that, like a siege tank on Daybreak, you can put them kind of in the middle, in between on that ramp, and then you can more or less defend both bases, small adjustments with positioning, maybe get a sensor tower. Sure. Widow Mines, you're moving them from, like, if the command center's here on the right side base, then you have Widow Mines down here. Hopefully this makes sense to the people watching. It makes sense in my head. But so you have your command center, you have the Widow Mines like just to the side at the entrance.
Yeah.
And that's really where they need to be to stop the units from getting into the base, to zone out the Speedlings, the Banelings, the Mutas. But at the same time, if you want to defend your natural, you have to bring your Widow Mines all the way back up and then at the top of that ramp. And so the distance they have to travel is so much larger compared to with the siege tank. Obviously, siege tank moves a bit slower. You have to unsiege and siege, which takes a little bit longer than burrow and unburrow, but usually it works pretty well.
Okay. I want to touch on something you actually mentioned about learning the timings once popping in and really getting that as part of your macro routine. Do you think we're going to be seeing some strategic targeting, if you like, maybe of some of the Korean players that we know have been playing Wings of Liberty all the way up until this tournament? Are people going to be doing a lot more sort of 1 and 2 base new timing pushes, Heart of the Swarm, against them to try and take them out early and see if they can capitalize on maybe a little bit less practice?
I really think the less Heart of the Swarm you've played, the more likely, or the more you should be doing 1 and 2 base timings.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the longer you go, the more opportunity there is for things that you don't know about to happen. But if you've only played a bit, you know the first 8 to 10 minutes really, really well, just stick to what you know and win with that, rather than trying to play long macro games where you're not really comfortable. Like, if you haven't played much against the Viper, you're not going to play well against it. It's just a different unit. The Viper has 3 abilities, for those of you who aren't familiar. So it's got a Consume, which is basically it drains health from a building, and that gives it mana. It has, and that's a 20-second duration. It gives it some amount of mana. I don't remember exactly. It's got an Abduct. For anyone who's played Dota-like games, it's basically a hook. So you can pull. You can pull a unit, but it's not a skill shot. So you choose Abduct, you click a unit, and it comes to the Viper. That's got range 9, which is the same range as a Viking's anti-air attack. And then the last ability the Viper has, and probably the most important in TVZ, is Blinding Cloud. Units underneath the area of effect, the circle of Blinding Cloud, are reduced to melee range. And so basically what happens in TVZ is you siege all your tanks, you get ready, you can push in, 2 or 3 Blinding Clouds, disable all of your siege tanks that cannot fire at all, and then units just roll in. Usually it's Roach Hydra.
And then you die.
Yeah, and then the game ends.
That's life. You win some, you lose some.
Exactly. All right, guys, so we have a little bit of a delay here in setting the games up initially. Just a small technical issue. Of course, we have a special server set up specifically for this tournament because the beta is down at the moment. We plan to be back in a bit with that as soon as we get the game set up. But for now, from the analysis desk, we will see you in a bit. We're going to head to a break. When we come back, game number 1 of sLivco against Lucifron. Welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship here at CeBIT in Hanover, Germany. I am Jorisar, joined, of course, by Complexity's QXC and Fanatics Harstam here at the analysis desk. QXC, your hair has been a bit of a talking point this morning.
Only if you follow Apollo.
Only if I follow Apollo. When did it happen and why did it happen?
This is actually the 3rd time that I've had to re-dye it.
Oh.
Yeah. The dye I've been using is not very good.
Has it been like leaking?
No, well,
do you come out of the shower looking like the Blue Man Group?
It sweats out. So after I dye my hair, I've been, if I go exercise, I start getting like...
You come back blue?
Well, not on my arms, because the dye isn't on my arms, it's on my head.
Oh, yeah.
So it like drips down and I get like a neck beard of blue. That's like basically what happens. I was.
You need to stop using printer ink to dye your hair. It just doesn't work that well, man.
I was guarding someone in Frisbee, and it was like after a pretty long day.
Yeah.
And like, he was like gonna throw it, and then he just stops and like looks at me. He's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I looked at, I was like, "What? What did I do?" And he's like my whole face was just blue. But
wow. And so you've re-dyed it again recently, and fingers crossed it's not going to.
Yeah. It kept turning some combination of yellow and green, which was really very unexpected for blue hair dye.
So it's supposed to be blue, but it's actually yellow?
Yeah, that's like basically what happened. It was like anywhere between yellow and green, and then at some point it was like silver, and it was really odd.
Are you sure it was hair dye that you used?
Every time I went and checked it in the mirror, it was like a different color. But now, I think it's good. I think it's blue. I re-dyed it on Friday, before I left.
Yeah, looking good.
Yeah,
looking sharp.
Oh, thanks.
See, tomorrow, if you like come with just a random bushy beard of blue, we'll know you didn't grow it overnight.
What?
If it starts like leaking down your face, you show up with a beard on camera.
These games are intense, but I don't think they're that intense.
Oh, it's going to be pretty sick. We're going into, of course, sLivco versus Lucifron, game number 1 here. And we had a couple of technical issues previously, but everything is sorted now, and we have an invite into the game. Guys, what are we expecting to see here in this first series?
The map is Newkirk City, and this is one of the new Heart of the Swarm maps. Probably the most notable, not feature, but kind of like characteristic of this map is it's very easy to get up to 4, 5, 6 bases. The bases are all very close together. They're all on your side of the map. So on some maps, kind of when you're expanding, you're moving closer and closer to your opponent. Think like Cloud Kingdom. As you take additional bases, they become increasingly vulnerable. Newkirk City isn't really like that. It is to some extent, but for the most part, like you're expanding, but you're still expanding kind of on your side of the map. And sometimes you take a base, like your 3rd, and then your 4th will be even more defensible than your 3rd. Just by having your 3rd, you almost get a 4th. And then your 5th will not necessarily defend it at, like if you keep your armies at your 3rd, will you be able to defend your 5th? But it's not like you're moving closer to your opponent when you take it.
Yeah, but at that point, isn't it a split map already in a TVC scenario? Like, it's pretty easy to split the map as well with mech, I assume.
Mech often goes into like a big split map position. If there was any map we would see Mech on, and if there was any map we would see Sky Terran on, I would think it'd be this one. And possibly a Killian Waste.
We have a couple of shots there of the players getting set up and ready there. You can see they're playing actually on the brand new BenQ XL 2720Ts. You can see, of course, that branding on the back of those monitors. BenQ brought those monitors specifically to this tournament for their worldwide launch. So these guys are the first people that are actually playing on their new monitor. And from what I've heard so far from both the players and the casters, actually, these things they're actually pretty good.
Yep, brand new 27-inch monitors.
Can't complain, man.
Pretty exciting.
So it's pretty awesome stuff coming out of that there. But don't forget, of course, we have Intel and Patriot to thank for this tournament. And of course, at all times, please make sure you tweet in. We are at IEM. Use the hashtag IEM as well if you want to communicate with us on Twitter. We are checking those and picking them up pretty much all the time. I think Carmack refreshes his Twitter feed every 2.5 milliseconds, so he will be picking up your tweet. And no doubt, we look forward to a lot of interaction with you guys over the weekend. Of course, you guys have Twitters as well. Why don't you go ahead and let people know where they can find you this week?
I'm at Cole_QXE. You can always tweet at me. Let me know what you think. If you have anything really to say, and I'll be checking that and retweeting and replying and seeing what's going on.
Yeah, I'll be replying as well at Harstem, just simple, easy, at Harstem, and I'll be replying, retweeting, whatever.
That's right, and of course I am at Jorisar, guys, so please do let us know what you think. Also, if there's any questions you want to maybe tweet in just after a game, we might be able to pick them up and have a chat about some of those during an analysis session, so that'd be really cool as well.
It's definitely not out of the question. You just got to be fast. Get those tweets out.
Real fast.
Get those fingers flexing, man. There are going to be a lot of questions. This is the very first major Heart of the Swarm tournament. The beta is down. All eyes are on us right now. And we are likely to see maybe some of the players who've been practicing a lot more over the last couple of weeks come out with strategies that we haven't seen in the beta. We need to be here expecting to see a lot of really cool, brand new stuff.
There's been a couple of kind of online events. GSTL preseason, Heart of the Swarm. There's been a couple of King of the Hills. Jasato's done one. I think Engine's done one. There's been the MLG Winter Showdowns. But these have all been kind of isolated show matches or just like little matches here and there.
Yeah.
And we really haven't seen the type of play that comes out of a tournament where whoever is winning this tournament is going to be playing 10 or 15 different, maybe like 8 different opponents. Maybe 20 or so games, and that type of consistency, that type of different strategies is something that is so cool to watch. It's so interesting what people can come up with on the fly, what they've prepared, what they have ready, no matter who they play.
No, that's a great point, actually. And Harstem, of course, like both of you guys are pro gamers, going into a tournament where if you get deep, you're looking to play a lot of people in a row. Obviously, the preparation for that differs a lot from if you're just showing up to play a show match or something like that. Talk us through a little bit about what these players are thinking and how they're preparing differently to what, of course, they would be practicing normally.
Well, I think the groups have been announced quite some time ago, like a week or 1.5 weeks ago, so they could actually prepare specifically for their opponents. That's what I would have done. Try to look through the match history or try to get some replays from your friends if they played them on ladder, just to get a general idea, because you know their playstyle is going to change in 1 week, because Heart of the Swarm, like 2 days later, the build they did, they're not going to be using that anymore. They keep on switching it up, but to just get a general idea of every player, what he likes to play, like does he like Vipers, does he like Roach Hydra, does he like Ultras, how does he open? I think those are some general ideas that always will be stylistic for a player.
Yeah, I think that's really important if you can make it work. This is probably one of, if not the hardest event to date to actually prepare for opponents.
Yeah, for
the majority of these players are not using their actual account on Heart of the Swarm. There's basically been no tournaments that they've been in Heart of the Swarm. There's very few show matches. Even MC, who we usually see everywhere, has barely played any televised Heart of the Swarm matches. And so I think right now it's really about how well do you know what your opponent's race can do. Because you're not going to know what your opponent is planning. You're not going to know really what's in his head. Like, you might know kind of the things he likes to do in general, but besides that, I mean, it's really a tough thing to be ready for.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I like the idea that, of course, the players need to take a step back here and see what the races of the opponent they're playing. Maybe get a gauge on their opponent's overall style, if they go macro heavy or if they really like early game aggression. That could come into play as well. But don't forget, of course, we were talking a little bit earlier about how at the beginning here of Heart of the Swarm, there are a lot of new unexplored timings by all races that may or may not be fully understood yet. And for that reason, it's entirely possible that we could be seeing a lot of games leaning a lot more to that early game aggression. Is there anything in particular for any of the races, of course you guys play as well, that you think might be particularly powerful for any of the races?
Widow Mines?
Widow Mines I expect to see in most matchups by most players. Hellbats, with the two recent changes, only 2 Hellbats per medevac, and you now have to research the transformation mode once the armory finishes. I don't expect we'll see any 1-base Hellbats, but we definitely will probably see them in 2- and 3-base unit compositions.
Yeah, I think together with Bio, it's great against Protoss. We've discussed it earlier. It's really strong. Even without upgrades, they're really good against charge lots. And I'm not sure in ZVT, I bet they completely dominate Lings.
The existence of Hellbats basically means you can't go speedlings. Or if you do, you have to control very well. You have to split them up. You have to attack where the Hellbats aren't, because the Hellbats are relatively slow. They're the same movement speed as a siege tank, as a marine, as a Colossus. So they're not a particularly fast unit. They only have 2 range, but they do a ton of damage. They do 30 damage per shot. They attack a little bit slower than a regular Hellion, but if Lings get close, they just disappear.
Especially the conical shape as well of their attack really helps in there, in that close quarters situation. But what about, we've spoken a fair bit about the Terran units here. What kind of timings and what kind of interesting compositions are we going to see out of Zerg and Protoss, do you think, in this tournament? Obviously, you mentioned before that Zerg, the new Zerg units in Heart of the Swarm, we might be seeing a little bit more of those towards the mid and late game, so we might not see too much change in the beginning. But talk us through what you think would be different anyway.
At least in TVZ, I would expect there's kind of mass speed Roach timings, and those haven't really changed much since Wings of Liberty. And now there's also it's usually a 3-base Roach Hydra timing. There's it's usually a 3 going on to 4-base, and this will be a Roach Hydra Viper timing. Because of the Viper's consumability that allows them to regain mana relatively quickly, you can hit timings with the Spellcaster at a rate that you normally would not be able to. So let's say with Infestors, you'd probably want maybe 100, 125, 150 energy before you really do an attack to maximize their effectiveness. With Vipers, the moment they come out, you start consuming usually evolution chambers, building up their energy, and then you're able to hit this Hive Tech timing that hits much earlier than pretty much any other Hive Tech timing.
In ZVP, Zerg has a lot of different playstyles. We've been seeing some 2-base Nidus, then defend them with Spine Crawlers and Queens. 3-base, 2-base Nidus Swarm Host, I meant. 3-base Nidus Swarm Host, lots of Swarm Host actually into Hydras if there's air, or just mass Queens with it. We've been seeing quite some Roach Hydra, especially from the Korean Zergs that I played on ladder, and when I watched GSL, I think we saw quite some Roach Hydra into Viper timings with a 4th base, then take a 5th base behind it, get a lot of gas, so you can make a pretty solid Brute Lord transition out of it, then go back to Ultras. Lots of Zergs. A few Zergs have been playing Baneling heavy, then going into Ultras. Dimaga, one of the guys favoring this style. And so there are just lots of different styles, and I don't think everyone figured out every single style yet. So
for sure,
some people are going to be good against Roach Hydra, some are going to be good against Swarmos, but it's going to be awesome.
Go ahead. Well, don't forget, of course, just because they're not in the first matchup of the day, let's not neglect Protoss. What kind of interesting openings against any of the races do we think we're going to be seeing this week here?
I think against Terran we are going to see some Blink openings, Blink all-in 4-gate, especially against Gasless Expand, and we might see some Oracle openings, some Void Ray openings. Normally, if you open a Stargate, it's going to be some kind of pressure. Some could say even an all-in build, but we did see MC, I believe, take one gate Stargate into a Nexus, so we might see that in the MLG Winter Showdown, so we might see that coming out of him again. I'm not sure if he changed his playstyle since then, because that was pre-patch, I do believe.
That was before the Widowmine patch, so that was quite a while ago, so do expect to see some differences.
And then against Zerg, we've been seeing lots of early third bases against Zerg because of the Planetary Nexus or the Photon Overcharge. And I just called it the Planetary Nexus. Not sure what it's actually called. Yeah, you put it on the Nexus and it kills everything, which is great, especially against Lynx. And with one or two cannons, you're going to be able to defend. We also have been seeing quite some Stargate openings with Phoenix and Oracles. Oracles relying on your opponent not having any kind of defense at all. If they do have one Spore Crawler, your Oracle is going to be shut down. And yeah, that's basically it in PvZ.
I want to talk about the Oracle a little bit. I feel like the Oracle is one of those units that initially everyone was like, this unit is far too strong, this unit is breaking every matchup. And I'm actually feeling like the more Heart of the Swarm you play, the less likely you are to use Oracles. And, well, yeah, to use Oracles, because it's really a Protoss decision whether you use them. It's just because, yes, they are devastating if unprepared for, but if you know the timings and you usually can scout and figure it out, at least from a Terran perspective, they will do a negligible amount of damage and put the Protoss in a poor position.
Well, that investment, of course, early game does have to pay off somehow as well. But speaking of early game for Protoss, especially earlier on in the beta, we saw a lot of interesting sort of pokey timing attack pushes from Protoss with a Mothership Core because, of course, you can now recall units back to base. It almost acts as like a Terran-style drop. Am I correct in saying that I think we've seen a little bit less of that recently than we saw earlier on in the beta, where people were trying to be more aggressive in the early game? Are we going to see much use of recall here in this tournament?
I think we're going to see it mostly against Zerg and maybe some in PvP. I don't use it that often in PvT because it is quite a long channeling time, so your units are going to be there for like 1 more second. And against Terran, that's devastating. Like, they will steam in and still kill 5 sentries.
Totally agree. The Terran army just has so much DPS. Any moment where you're taking damage and not dealing it is really bad.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. And against Zerg, it's a bit less because normally you have a lot of sentries, so you can force shoot out, then recall. Yeah, but lately we have been seeing it a little bit less. When we do see it, however, is when people open up with Gateway. There are 2 big schools of thought at this moment. Gateway expand, Forge Fast expand, or Nexus first into Forge. And basically when you go Forge Fast expand, the most normal thing to do is get a quick third base with it and some tech, or get Stargate and then a little bit of a later third base. If you do Gateway expand, you normally put on 3 or 4 gate pressure, sometimes even 5 gate pressure. You scout with a hallucination, see if he's getting early tech, see if he's defended. If he's not defended, you kill him. If he is defended, you try to deny his third for a little bit longer, maybe take your own, counter the tech that he is getting, and then just recall if it's getting too dangerous. And that's basically what we have seen the Mothership Core being used for.
Sure. Well, we'll see if we get too much. We'll see if we get a lot of that. Like you mentioned, of course, against a Terran army, it gets a little bit difficult. You don't really want to be put in a situation where you're forced to use it because you take a lot of damage in the meantime. Anything to add there, QXE?
We will expect to see Time Warp, especially in PvT, and combined with Charge Lots and Storm. I think that's really where Time Warp shines. Time Warp being it's just a big area of effect. It's got a tremendous range and a tremendous area of effect. It lasts a fair amount of time, and all the units within it are slowed by 50%. So Time Warp on top of the Bio Army, Charge Lots now able to close the distance, Archon's able to close the distance, Psionic Storm so much stronger when you cannot dodge at that same rate.
Yeah, and I think the main thing about the Time Warp is that you can actually force field now. So you throw down the Time Warp, and normally the units would run out of force field range, but now you just force field, so your Zealots have all the time of the world to get to them. And, well, they obliterate. Terran armies, man. Charge Lot against Marines isn't a pretty fight.
No, it definitely is, and we've seen a couple of those, of course, and with that Time Warp as well, like you guys mentioned, just so much easier to get up close and personal and wipe that out. So a lot of interesting strategies from all the races here at Heart of the Swarm here at the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship. We're going to go to a quick break, guys, and when we come back, game number 1 will begin between sLivco and Lucifron. Welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, we have both players in the game now. Thank you for sticking with us. And we're going to be getting into this incredibly exciting TVZ very shortly.
Boom, here we go. This is it. The start of Heart of the Swarm.
That's right, man. Of course, the first tournament on Heart of the Swarm, the first major tournament, it begins now. And the players are both in the lobby. Just going to make sure they're ready before we chuck it over. Harston, any final words?
No. I think Lucifron's gonna win though. I just have that feeling. Look at him. He's laughing.
Happy.
He's happy.
He's pretty happy, man.
It's like Lord Widow Mines.
He's like, I found the hotkey for Widow Mines. Everything is good in the world. QXC, any score predictions? Oh. Well, it certainly starts out at 0-0, but who do you reckon is going to get to 2?
I always cheer for the Terran, Lucifron.
Always cheer for the Terran. Okay, a little bit of bias here on the analysis.
There is a lot of bias on this analysis, though.
There is indeed, but again, like we've mentioned several times already, the cards are all up in the air right now. The players have been practicing, some more than others, and there are a lot of new early game timings. There are a lot of new strategies that these guys can employ. But we'll find out what happens as we head into game number 1. Guys, give it up for your commentators. We have Diapollo and Mouse Calaris.
Thanks very much, guys. Here at the commentary desk with myself, Kyle Lars, and Apollo. Apollo, the first Heart of the Swarm tournament, the first major game ever to be played here. How are you feeling?
I am feeling a little bit tired, actually, through the delay, so we excuse for the delays that we just had, but the game is finally ready. The first game of the Heart of the Swarm tournament here at the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship is coming your way.
And we are indeed on Newkirk City, as we had Mr. QXE and the guys telling you over there on the analysis desk. So I'm pretty sure we can jump straight on in here as we have our first TVZ to kick things off.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into game number 1 here to start this Intel Extreme Masters. I'm very excited for this, Calaris. Very excited.
So am I. So Lucifron and sLivco looking poised and ready to go here. Caronte versus Virtus Pro. sLivco, I made a lot of notes on these players before, as we always do, and under the sLivco box I have Is a Bear.
Is a Bear. Great notes there. Great notes, Calaris.
Very well done. So guys, without further ado, we do have our players spawning down in the bottom right-hand corner here. As our blue Terran, we have Caronte's Lucifron. And spawning down to the bottom left-hand corner as our red Zerg, we have VP BenQ sLivco.
All right, so this game has finally begun, the first game of the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship between Caronte's Lucifron, of course, from Spain, versus sLivco from the mother country.
Yeah, sLivco here, he's out for blood. He always is. And I mean, sLivco is one of those performers during Wings of Liberty that always placed really, really well. He finished 3rd place in Katowice. Really shining there, but unable to pip Mr. Grubby at the post. And then you have Lucifron, who Singapore and Katowice finished 9th through 12th.
Yeah,
so he's actually one of the players that actually hasn't finished in the top 5 of an IEM, which is surprising because almost every other player has here.
That's right. They both had a good Season 7 here at the Intel Extreme Masters, coming into the World Championship. Neither of them played in last year's World Championship, but they are here today in CeBIT, Hanover, in Germany, and we already have the openings of the game starting to begin here. And to be honest, the differences between Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty, especially within Terran vs. Zerg, there's a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Widow Mines will be used in this game. Hellbats will be used in this game. And I'm very, very much so interested to see what sLivco is going to do. There's been a lot of discussions. Can Zerg handle the heat in Heart of the Swarm?
Yeah, I think one of the ways that Zergs can try and get that, as we've, the analyst test has mentioned earlier, is, with Vipers eventually to be able to, say for example, if we see Lucifron go into mech and then try and gain some air positioning with Vikings, you can actually find yourself in a really good spot, drag a lot of those Vikings towards you and crush them really effectively, like with Hydralisk playing the mid game, for example.
That's right. I mean, the Vipers seem to be the biggest changer for Zerg. They are so powerful. They nullify a lot of the compositions that Terran can build around tanks, Marines, Marauders, you name it. So we'll see how this is going to play out. So far, sLivco has opened up relatively normal compared to Wings of Liberty here. Just Queen production, drone production with a handful of links to start to scout the game. On the other hand, Lucifron, 1 barracks into command center, double gases down, and now the factory. The factory in Heart of the Swarm, it depends on which way you want to go for. You can go 2 Hellions into Widow Mines or straight into Widow Mines. Usually, you're using the factory in a defensive position more so than an aggressive one. In Wings of Liberty, Hellions were eventually pushed back by Queens and Links that you couldn't really get damage done. But what in Heart of the Swarm they do is give you Widow Mines and the advantage to be able to go for a 3rd command center behind defensive Widow Mines.
Yeah, there's so much space control potential there from the Terran, and Lucifron should be able to use that quite aptly. For now, sLivco really hasn't seen too much other than 1 gas actually on the very peak of his opponent's base, and even trying to scout out a 3rd location there, not really seeing too much. So for now, just getting the bases down, and already Burrow going down very, very quickly here for sLivco.
Yeah, Burrow, I haven't really seen too many players within Heart of the Swarm get this Burrow. So once again, going back over to Wings of Liberty, Burrow, you had to tech up to layer first. Now it's a tech that you can get on hatchery level, an ability you can get on hatchery level. What he's going to be looking to do is break through the front wall and then spread roaches around, because there's not going to be an engineering bay at this stage of the game. The engineering bay timing doesn't come until 9 minutes in the game. So what he's going to look to do is force multiple scans. The way to stop this is not to let the front wall break down. We already have supply depots going through. We have 4 Hellions being made. I wonder if we'll see Widow Mines at all here. But with a bunker, and once he starts to see this, I don't think this Burrow is going to be as effective as sLivco's hoping for.
Yeah, we're seeing these Hellions poke forwards here for Lucifron. He's looking to see what he can actually grab. He grabs a few creep tumors, and even researching cloak behind this. Is he going to poke up and see the Roach Warren? As there's already 10 roaches about. Oh, he's already seen the Roach Warren actually. So, but he knows the wall is going to be going up soon now.
So a lot of roaches are on the way here, and Banshee production is going to be very crucial to keep on going. Is Lucifron going to play mech? We saw his mech in Wings of Liberty. We saw him use mech in multiple tournaments here. There is the 3rd command center behind the Hellions, behind the Banshees, and we're going to have to see how well this is going to work for sLivco here. Now the roaches have been revealed, and they do have Burrow, remember.
Didn't even get a single Hellion there, though. Lucifron playing very well in terms of retaining his units. As for now, he will just position a few more to try and dart on in when those roaches come along. But this wall is not looking too sturdy here, Apollo.
And if these roaches break that wall and make their way in, they will start to spread, they will start to burrow, and that's when things become difficult. But there is the bunker coming down for Lucifron. Once the Marine's in there, he can start repairing. But the question is, does the bunker complete before the roaches even get there? Because it cannot be repaired unless it's finished.
So true, and he's getting an engineering bay behind this, so if he goes for missile turrets, he should be okay if this doesn't actually go down. And the Banshee now putting a big, big clock on these roaches, but that's a lot of damage here, taking down the SCV, taking down that bunker, and he should be able to flood on in, even burrowing some that are already weak here.
Yeah, and there comes down 1 scan, and well, he's going to have to use more than 1, unfortunately, because this is not how Lucifron planned this to go down. He is dealing a lot of damage here, but as soon as that scan goes, we can see Burrow movement.
Yeah, we could indeed, and he's trying to get a missile turret as quickly as he can, so retaining as much energy on those command centers, but the Spire behind all of this is on the way. sLivco realizes that missile turret's going down, he tries to do the damage he can, but gets cleaned up eventually.
Yeah, good defense there by Lucifron, and does take a bit of a lead in this game, having killed a lot of units there. 8 SCVs did get killed, which does bring Lucifron down to 39 over 51 drones, and we have the Spire, but there is the most crucial part of this game, I suppose, is the armories coming down.
Yeah, with that mech play, we'll see Lucifron going back to his true tried self, but just with a slight little new flair here in Heart of the Swarm, poking forwards now, trying to deny this 3rd. Surprisingly for sLivco, this base up and running just as his opponent's already got his command center behind this, so they're going to be very, very level pegging in terms of income, if not advantage for the Terran.
Yeah, definitely. Terran definitely looking in a good position here. Those roaches didn't do as much as sLivco initially anticipated here, and these Banshees are going to make their way in. There's only the detection from the Overseers. Queen's relatively slow as creep, not connected from the main to natural, and drones will die.
Yeah, very nice little harass here, getting an extra volley off on every single one of these drones, killing them instantaneously, and he will get out for now, but behind this, sLivco just says, well, I'll just make 10 drones and equalize up the odds for now.
That's right, and with 1-1 coming down, drones actually falling on natural as well.
Yeah.
10 have fallen down, but remember this is a 2-base Zerg, so that 10 is incredibly important for sLivco. And despite him having a supply advantage, we have turrets on the way, and we will see Thor production begin shortly to deflect this, which now Lucifron knows is coming, these Mutalisks.
Yeah, this is a pretty darn good, not only the aggression, but it also gives him that scouting capability, seeing exactly what you've just pointed out. The Mutalisks pop, they're going to eventually be able to clean up these Banshees, but still such good control here. Lucifron well known for the Banshee aggression, and he kills so many more drones.
And behind this, 2 Thors should be made immediately, which they are. And with the turrets that are there, they should buy enough time for the Thors to get out. And as soon as the Thors do enter this game, is when sLivco is going to be like, well, I went for Roaches, it didn't work, I've gone for Mutalisks, these won't really do much. And he has to defend back at home because Hellions are driving across the map. There's nothing to defend because drones are being made. This game is just crumbling for sLivco.
It really is. These Mutalisks need to do a lot, but how can they with the missile turrets threatening? The Hellions getting so many more drones once again, even dropping the scan as they burrow instantly. Mutalisks do get a cancel on a building and trying to do some more infrastructure damage, but the Hellions have already done so much. 40 workers killed have already been killed off in this game.
Trademark Lucifron here, playing mech in Heart of the Swarm, and Queens will die, drones will die as well, but the Thors are now out, which means the Mutalisks cannot do anything.
No.
They'll come back and they will defend, but the harassment is done. It's over. That's good enough for Lucifron. He's very happy, and with taking a 3rd base, gases and turrets to fortify that area, it's only going to get worse for sLivco from here because Lucifron's going to continue to upgrade. Yep. And there are no upgrades at all for sLivco. He hasn't got an army at this stage. This is disastrous.
Yeah, and the great thing for Lucifron is even if this Mutalisk aggression subsides and sLivco decides to go into some kind of Broodlord play eventually, if he can get his hive up and running, the Thors just transfer their weapons into the ones that are able to do so much more damage to that armored air force.
And there we have the 1-1 upgrades finally coming in for sLivco, the Infestation pit down as well. Roach speed, it's all coming at once because he has to. He'll need to take a 4th base momentarily as well. And what we're going to see from Lucifron is just, if he wants to play it safe and guarantee the win, wait until 2 is completed, wait until he has supply around 160 or so as 2-2 completes, and just simply march across the map.
Yeah, so much firepower in the army that is being constructed here from Lucifron. Clear Reconstitution is going down for sLivco behind this, so he's trying to prepare for some kind of eventuality here with a lot of Roaches to try and, you know, just get very, very good concaves and a lot of damage off on this army quickly, but still, well, he's doing a good job of denying the Hellion harass, at least for now.
Yeah, and look at that, a very, very fast hive from sLivco. And this is basically saying, I'm in trouble. Maybe if I can go all the way up to Ultralisk Cavern super fast, maybe I can deal with this. But the problem is it won't come fast enough in this game. We should, as mentioned, be seeing Lucifron move out. He has Blue Flame on the ways for his Hellions, Widow Mines as well to protect his army and plant around in front of his mech army. And that's only going to make things worse.
Yep, it's just great zoning capability. It makes that relative slow push in inverted commas even more deadly because you just cannot breach the location of the mech as it's moving across the map. It makes it so difficult, and he's even going for the Hellbat upgrade now here just to make these Hellions a little bit more sturdy once he goes for that slow push.
And just to tell you guys how well Lucifron's been doing in Heart of the Swarm, he's actually was for the most of the beta top 50 Grandmaster Barcode Terran at the top of the ladder. So he's been doing extraordinarily well, not just in Heart of the Swarm recently, and he's about to come and steamroll over sLivco, and it's going to make this very, very ugly, unfortunately.
Good God, this is a devastatingly strong army here. The Widow Mines are going to place themselves very, very neatly up on this creep here quickly, and from that point on, he's just trying to get as many Roaches out as possible. He's slightly supply blocked here. He's getting those Overlords up and running so that he can get as many units out. The Greater Spire now starts, but he has to get that done so quickly.
Yeah, it's any tech that he tries to go for won't work here. The Mutalisks take enormous amounts of damage from the Thors. The Widow Mines are spread across in case of flanks coming as well. And the 3rd base has been destroyed. Granted, sLivco does have another base to the top left, but that army, the Roaches don't have upgrades. They've been upgrading melee, as we see. +1 range just now being made. Fighting against 2-2 Hellions, 2-2 tanks, 2-2 Thors and Hellbats as well.
No, those Hellbats, they're here and they're ready for blood. As for now, he's just going to march forwards. Fungal goes down, but only locks down a few of those Hellbats as the Roaches now pile on out. But again, so much space control. The Widow Mines, the Siege Tanks, he's going to move in with a ton of these Roaches. Will he be able to crush this? Trying to take down some of these, though. They do go down, but there's so much splash damage there from Lucifron.
Yeah, GG. Game 1 of the Intel Extreme Masters Championship goes to Lucifron in quite convincing fashion, to be honest, deflecting different types of aggression and just nailing out a super solid build, which we all know him for.
Very strong. And I mean, what does sLivco do in game number 2 here? He has to deviate. I can't see him really making this work out here. He has to bring something new to the table. Otherwise, Lucifron's going to have the defensive capabilities set up. And sLivco's going to be down now.
All right, so let's go ahead and pass it over to our amazing expert desk and see the wonder thoughts of the guy with the blue hair.
Thank you very much, Apollo. All right, guys, so we have a pretty solid game number 1 coming out of there from Lucifron. Of course, the first thing we noticed during that game is that we saw a reasonably quick, but not as fast as possible, burrow coming out from sLivco there.
Yeah, one thing that was pretty interesting about that game was usually the roach timing hits at right around 7 minutes. And that's basically the earliest that Zerg can make it work while still getting out the 2 injects that they want and also the gas that comes with it. When you add in that additional 100 gas for that burrow, it delayed everything by so much in that game. It just felt wrong. It just felt like a bad timing. Because once Lucifron is up to 1 or 2 Banshees, he's already got his 4 Marines, and then he's got 4 to 6 Hellions. That roach timing is just, the burrow is not adding a lot to it. And it almost felt like it was really interesting to see sLivco try something different, try something utilizing the new options that he has in Heart of the Swarm, but I almost feel like it was just a weaker version of the normal 7-minute roach timing as it hit at like 7:30, 7:40.
Yeah, it felt like he forced himself to use some kind of new style, which actually wasn't better than the old thing with just getting 7 roaches and try to attack, kill some SCVs. I think if it would have hit 30 seconds earlier, like you mentioned, you would have been very good. It would have been very good, and we would have been able to kill maybe double the amount of SCVs or even completely kill Lucifron.
Okay. Well, let's take a quick look as well, very briefly, a little bit further in the game as well. We're here just past the 10-minute mark. And QXC, you mentioned a bit about Lucifron getting some counterplay in before the mutas managed to get out from sLivco.
Right. And so what was really important about this game in terms of what Lucifron did, why he made that push look so strong, was because after the roaches, after he defended that, he basically has a couple minutes window well, he can do counterplay, well, he can do harass, well, sLivco is going to be trying to catch up in terms of drones, economy, tech, because he committed so much to that roach pressure. Once mutas are out, pretty much this Hellion harass, the Banshees harass absolutely will stop. And so Lucifron he knows this is his opportunity to do damage. Well, sLivco is not going to want to build units. He does a great job of moving his Banshees around, sniping drones, just damaging sLivco and putting himself in a position where he can freely go up to 3 bases, doesn't have to worry too much about a big 2-base roach push. There's no big 3-base roach push. Lucifron, in doing all this damage, puts sLivco on the back foot and does not allow him to really utilize the map control that the mutas will give him.
All right, and yeah, we can see now the mutas popping out, killing off the Banshees, but like you mentioned, the damage, trying to get in there and poking around, softening the economy is being done, and off the back of this, of course, Lucifron managed to take the game. So guys, we're going to be heading into game number 2 in just a bit here. Lucifron versus sLivco, of course. Let's pop it over to our commentators. We have Apollo and Kalaris.
Thanks very much, guys, as we do have game number 2 on the way. Cloud Kingdom, actually. A little bit of a throwback.
Yeah, I've actually casted a lot of Heart of the Storm games and tournaments, and it always seems to be when, you have the option to choose a map and go to another map, it kind of goes back to Wings of Liberty a lot of the times here. So kind of a comfort area maybe for the players, as we see, who will be able to continue through with this series, with Lucifron currently leading 1-0 over sLivco.
Yeah, you make a very, very good point here. sLivco having that comfort zone of Cloud Kingdom. They've both played a million games on this. Actually, now that I think about that, Lucifron almost exclusively went 11-11 on this map, and he may do it even in Heart of the Swarm.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of 2-Rex plays that can still be used. There's Reaper plays that can be used as well in Heart of the Swarm, and a lot of different other strategies. It looks like we do have a bit of a problem just for 1 second before we jump into this game, so we'll keep you entertained over here. Yep. And I'm very much so looking forward to this game, kind of group unraveling a little bit more. We've only just started to scratch the surface.
We really have. And it's funny because, people came into this tournament, it's like, well, which is the group of death? Admittedly, Group D is very fearsome, but every single group has such amazing talent in it that I can't... normally when I go into a tournament, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely going to be, you know, top 3 player, top 3. But there's so many players here that could just, it's wild as to who could finish top 3.
It's crazy. I mean, just looking more specifically at Group A, I've definitely got Lucifron as a top pick to advance out the group here. You know, definitely top 2, I feel, my opinion. Yeah, don't know about you.
Yeah,
agree.
Pretty good. Pretty darn.
I've got the other players in the group though. You got Nurchio, sLivco, Younghwa, Parting. It's a tough group.
It really is. It really is. But Lucifron looking really stellar in that first game there.
Yeah.
Gotta say, sLivco has to mix it up a little bit, as we stated previously. I think that he has to. I mean, what can he do here?
Not open burrow.
Not open burrow. That's certainly a good one.
I think it gave him a disadvantage playing against Lucifron enough. I think that he went over that replay and would be like, all right, where do I change to actually improve myself against Lucifron in game number 2? Opening burrow. I mean, we talked about it a little bit in the cast. Is it worth it? Does it add a lot to you? And as long as that wall slows the Zerg down from getting the roaches in there initially, which 10 out of 10 Terrans make, and then as you know, QXC said with Banshees, Hinds, Marines, they just aren't doing the damage necessary. And he was always playing from a behind situation from there. And you know, the Mutalist choice as QXC opened up a window for you know, Terran to do damage with Banshees. So definitely, I think his biggest problem with was his decision to open up with that kind of opening.
Yeah, and the gas you're investing during all of that, it's delaying, you know, potential techs for later on. Like
upgrades, we sure, you know, upgrades, you know, the tech. Definitely. So we'll see what he's going to go into it. I don't think sLivco is going to have the best time in this group, though. The players he's got playing against, Zerg in general, are struggling at the moment in Heart of the Swarm. For anybody that's even just looked at the Grandmaster ladder, it's like Terran, and a few Protoss sprinkled around, and then there's a few Zergs, a very minimal amount of Zergs. Lucifron, I guarantee you, was top 50, top 25 Grandmaster in Heart of the Swarm on a barcode.
Yep.
And that's incredible to see him just doing so well. And he not only in Heart of the Swarm has he been doing well, in Wings of Liberty he's won a couple of tournaments recently. And then on top of all that, Caronte and Lucifron have joined forces tighter than ever before, and he's now playing full time, which changes everything. There was a lot of discussions throughout this season at Intel Extreme Masters and other tournaments. When will Lucifron or Vortex or both go full time? And that time is now.
Yep, and Lucifron already showed it, as you said, winning a ton of money recently. He's looking in the best form we've actually seen him for a long, long time. I don't know if that carries over fully to Heart of the Swarm, but certainly in Wings of Liberty, winning himself a good amount of cash.
Absolutely, like roughly about $40,000 that Lucifron won, compared to sLivco, who unfortunately has never won a tournament in Wings of Liberty. It is a fresh game, it's a fresh slate, so granted he never won a tournament in Wings of Liberty, can he do it now? And I think the adjustment over to Heart of the Swarm, because if you look at sLivco's style in Wings of Liberty, you know, he was a tight defensive player who rocked in the later stages with Infested Broodlords, and that's not how it's played here.
No, not at all. He's having to find the openings there to try and transition himself onto that safe late game style that he does favor. But for now, we are loading into game number 2 here between Lucifron and sLivco, as we are on Cloud Kingdom. Both players looking ready to go here. Once again, Lucifron 1 game up. Let's jump on into the game. As we do have spawning up to our top right-hand corner as our blue Terran once again, currently 1 game up. He goes by the name of Caronte's Lucifron. And spawning down to our bottom left-hand corner here as our red Zerg. He needs to bring it back here in this best of 3. He goes by the name of VP BenQ sLivco.
And this is a definite map for Lucifron to use mech. You know, if you, the thing that I've looked at in Heart of the Swarm, especially Terran, more so than the other races, they hardly have changed, but they've just improved, if that makes sense. That everything's very, very similar, but everything's better. Winter Mines protect you. They're good aggressively, good defensively. And then you look at, actually he's gone for an 11 barracks. That's very, very fast there. And 11 gas too. So very fast opening here by Lucifron. But to wrap up what I just said is that Terrans only become better in Heart of the Swarm. And Lucifron naturally can only become stronger as well.
Yep, he has indeed. Now, looking at this, is this looking like a Reaper opening here to actually just poke along, have a little bit of a good scout, maybe poke a few drones here and there?
It can definitely be. I definitely feel it's going to be. Reaper openings are very strong against Zerg nowadays, and especially, I mean, it depends on how far you go with it. You can open up with 1 for a bit of a tickle.
Yeah.
You can go up to 3 and then kind of nail the queens down to a certain extent here. And that's already going to be scary for sLivco going in, seeing no barracks at the front door. You know, where is that barracks? Is it inside the main base? Is it not? And immediately throws down the spawning pool. And he's got two choices now for sLivco to defend this. It's either multiple amounts of queens straight away, or a very fast single gas to try and rush towards speed. Speed takes a lot longer to kick in, so the usual response here is to defend with queens and try not to lose drones before the first queen pops out, which there is a timing for you to do so.
Yeah, very, very important here for sLivco to make sure he doesn't incur too much damage, as the first SCV is actually going to throw down a bunker in between all of this, and I don't think it's envisioned. No, it is not. So Lucifron here might get away with murder very, very quickly on a few more units than he would desire, but he does now spot it, should be able to deny that bunker from going down.
Yeah, Reapers have become quite popular with their new regeneration that they have in Heart of the Swarm here. They do, of course, as soon as they go down at red health, you can, you know, leave and come back stronger. And the first Reaper's coming in, and of course they have speed straight away. There's no speed upgrade for the Reapers in this game, so they're just faster in general.
Very fast indeed now, trying to focus down one drone. Can micro that away, will go for one gas geyser here, firstly off to try and get that going, and the Zergling's going to chase him back, but the bunker's already done. I'm sort of surprised there wasn't a drone pot on the SCV there to try and deny that, but still, he's going to try and clean this up, and he's going to lose a few more units than I was expecting.
And behind this, you know, Lucifron should just be looking to expand here, so this is, you know, good harassment from him, good putting the pressure on. There comes the command center. The Spinecrawler and Queens will help push this bunker back, of course, but it's the drones and the harassment, the no mining on the natural, for example. All this is building towards Lucifron gaining a small advantage already.
Yeah, and he's going to have a third Reaper now finishing up in just a second. Spinecrawler is going to reposition itself, but they're actually in range of that Spinecrawler, so you can't really deal with that too easily. But bringing the double Queens along with the Zerglings here, still repairing on the bunker, but should be able to kill it eventually.
Yeah, he definitely is going to be able to kill it. You know, that's kind of why sLivco is never panicking in this game. But look at this, he may lose a Queen on the natural, though, that's for sure, especially with that third Reaper coming in.
Pew, 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 chasing him down, but diving on into the main now to try and find a little bit of damage on these drones once again. 3 Reapers, even a 4th now finishing up with double command center going down behind this. Lucifron has found pretty good holes in his opponent's defenses to kick things off. He hasn't done catastrophic amounts of damage, but, you know, 2 workers early on is not too bad.
I was about to say that because of all this harassment, he's got good scouting, and he never saw a Roach Warren come down to deflect this, which means he could go for a 3rd command center, which is probably the reason why. And he does grab a Queen, but there is a Roach Warren down now, so he's going to have to be very careful. And I think in this game, more so than the previous one, is when we're going to see the Widowmine usage to protect this super fast 3rd command center.
Yeah, definitely. That is going to be very, very good defense here, as the Reapers still doing the damage. 4 Reapers doing a lot here. They already got that first Queen, as pointed out, getting a lot of Zerglings as well. Units lost tab showing that he's in a 4 times deficit to his opponent right now in terms of cost. And Lucifron's down in supply, but I mean, that's going to be because of the Roaches on the way soon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's gone for 3 command centers. He's only got no units. He's 4 Reapers, that's it. And the Roach one's down. There's 80 gas been backed up. 5 Roaches are on the way. He needs to build Widow Mines if he's going to deflect this. Otherwise, the command centers will be for nothing here. Granted, if he does take damage, he can recover faster with orbital commands, but the Widow Mines are on the way. These are the things that are going to keep his economy locked down. And with 4 Reapers that can always regenerate, do damage, get out, regenerate, do damage, get out, regenerate. He may be able to hold this, but sLivco's going for it. This is it. He's saying, I don't like this. I don't like the way you're playing. And he's moving across the map shortly with these Roaches.
And every time that happens, the Reapers are just trying to dive back and forth on any... Micro's back. Nice transfuse there. Saving that Queen from those 3 Reapers constantly going. And,
look at the ramp. The SCVs actually were caught on the ramp there because the supply depots were up. So he's actually got nothing mining down there for a long time and didn't have the best income possible. But, of course, Widow Mines now... doesn't really want to detonate on an Overlord. That would be a disaster considering the Roaches are on the way here.
Yeah, those Reapers also coming back here to help out the defense, dancing around with those Roaches in the middle of that, but they do get caught there. A few do go down.
2 Reapers, man, that's half the defense he's had. SCV is going to be pulled. 1 Roach goes down. He's going to have to detonate on another Roach here, and look at that smartly. We have sLivco pulling 1 Roach at a time.
Killed off a lot of SCVs with him as well there. He was trying to buy time at that position so that the Widow Mines could kind of recuperate, but now a Marauder is helping out here as well, and all he has to do is reposition those Widow Mines somehow, but that's going to be a little bit dicey with sLivco keeping constant eyes on this aggression.
Yeah, sLivco won't be able to kill Lucifron here, but he's 100% slowing him down. Very shortly we'll see Lucifron pick up his Widow Mines and go towards the Roaches and borrow just outside their range. And we already have one in the mirror line, so this Roach is going to go down. A bit of splash damage is dealt there to the other Roaches around it, but it's fine. And to be honest, even in this position, Lucifron is still in the lead in this game. He's got 3 command centers. He should be having double engineering bay down. Maybe a little bit slow with that. Or it depends on, I guess, if he's playing mech or not. With double factory, I guess he doesn't need double engineering bay. Maybe that's just for turrets in case of burrow, I suppose. But behind this, I still think Lucifron's in good shape.
Yeah, I'm going into that mech now with a double armory as well as the third factory on the way here. So really, really transitioning onto that quite fast. Whilst the third base is going to go down for sLivco. Now, can sLivco deal with this potential aggression of Marauder, Reaper, Widowmine?
Yeah, this is the counter here. And this could be quite annoying, especially if, I mean, that third base, that's not going to be mine for a while. It depends on where Lucifron goes. Does he go straight for the natural here? There are spines, there are queens, there are roaches, so probably not here. I'll be interested to see if he tries this. He could lose a lot.
Oh, he really, really could. Those Widowmines are absolutely deadly. One of them's going to get focused down pretty quickly. Will it die? Yes, it does, just before it burrows. And another one actually assaulting this location right now. The Marauder's trying to zone them out, but these Widowmines are going to take a while to clean up, one would think.
Yeah, I don't think... there was a decision. There was a fork in the road to the natural to the third. And the natural, I don't quite think that was the best choice to go. If he'd gone to the third, with all those Marauders and Widowmines, he could have very easily zoned out that third.
Yeah.
He had 4 Marauders, which do a lot of damage versus structures, and he may have been able to bring that down. And now he looks like he's trying that option, but it's a little bit too late now. There's more units out. There's a Spore Crawler, which will detect all the Widowmines as well.
Yeah, so he's going to lose a few units for his troubles, I think here, with those Widowmines, killing them off. And the Marauders aren't doing too badly against this. Zerglings don't have speed, but they will do in just a little bit. So Lucifron wisely backing out.
Yeah, but like I said, if he'd gone there from the start, the get-go, maybe could have achieved more than he did here. But, you know, it's not a big problem. He, of course, has the third command center on the way, 1-1 down as well. And we're going to now start to see what Lucifron wants to start to build with his composition. Tanks Hellion so far, but with the Spire completion, no turrets down, no Thors. He's got no idea about the Spire either. 600, 700 gas in the bank.
Yeah. Not quite the scouting information that he had in Game 1 because of the Banshees and Hellions trying to constantly do harassment. But Lucifron certainly diversifying his play very interestingly here to really keep sLivco on his toes. But these Mutalisks might do a little bit.
I really don't think he's expecting Mutalisks here.
No.
The timing, well, he's actually getting turrets right at the good...
Wow. What?
It's just 1, though. If he starts to add more, I'm going to be a little bit shocked here. But it's just 1. I'm pretty sure he's not expecting them to come out. He is building a single Thor, but 1 turret is still going to lose SCVs here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But upon seeing the Roaches, the way that they didn't work in the previous game, maybe he's expecting a Roach Hydra play against Mech into Vipers or something along those lines. So he's not quite ready for this, and he will take losses. sLivco will kill SCVs here.
Yeah, should be able to do so. 67 drones right now to 61 SCVs after losing around 11 drones at the very beginning of this game for sLivco. So for now, he doesn't really have too many upgrades going here. And the Mutalisks are going to try and dive on into that third base. Still only the 1 missile turret down, but the second one is actually finishing up here in the third. So but still really not enough anti-air to deal with this Muta threat.
And there's none in the main base. The main mineral line, there's 0 turrets here, and damage will be dealt. SCVs will be killed. sLivco will gain himself a bit of damage dealt for the first time, to be honest, in this series.
Yeah, and a pretty good move here from sLivco, really taking him by surprise. All the SCVs actually come back once again here. The Thor is on the way to try and deal with this, but the Mutalisks take those shots and are happy to get a few SCVs straight. 20 gone down so far.
Yeah, Lucifron just didn't expect this. It's as clean and as simple as that. He didn't expect Mutalisk play to happen here, which, to be honest, is a little bit... I don't know. To be honest, you should be scanning. You should be expecting something. You can't just blindly assume that's not going to happen. And that's now given sLivco the 30 supply lead we see. He's got a good amount of drones. He has 1-1 upgrades on the way. We do not see 2-2 coming down for Lucifron because of all this harassment. And now the Hive is on the way as well.
Yeah, and the slight disruption that's been caused here for Lucifron means he hasn't put guys back into his 6th gas over his natural. So he's losing a little bit of gas here that he would be rather pumping into that mech play, which is very, very strong. Admittedly, it does have a little bit of a bank, but sLivco is looking all right here, and with a lot of links, he might just push in and try and do some damage.
Well, he may do here, but there's a lot of Hellions, a lot of tanks. It may not be the best decision in the world. And Lucifron actually just scanned the main base and saw the Hives on its way. Widowmine goes off and kills a couple of those Mutalisks, and that's quite scary, but not the biggest amount of damage dealt there, and the harassment continues. But like I said, upon seeing the Hive coming down, Lucifron either needs to build a 4th base or move out very, very shortly here.
Yeah, sLivco here just constantly dancing back and forth. Really, really nice harassment there. The bounces of those Glaives Worms hitting some of the SCVs as well. And for now, even just grabbing the drilling claws here for those Widowmines so that they can actually burrow a little bit quicker. Make sure that they're more defensively minded against this kind of Mutalisk threat.
And I think that we're going to see Lucifron move out to try and hit a timing before this Greater Spire here. He scanned, he saw it. Another scan comes down. I can hear it in my headset somewhere. It was on the 4th. He's seen, where's his army?
Yeah, a little bit of poking action back and forth here. Fungals do land on the front of that mech army. A few Banelings are actually morphing in. He wants to buy time for those, as we do have the Hellbats now moving on out, trying to find a good spot here. If you can crash those Banelings into them, that would be pretty good, but it's sometimes hard to actually make them connect with the Hellbats.
Yeah, without Baneling speed, those Banelings really won't be that useful here. And, well, it looks like Lucifron starting to bring all his units down towards this 4th base because, to be honest, behind the Mulus, sLivco's been relatively greedy. Hive really early, Greater Spire really early, minimal amounts of units and 4th base as well, but now he has had the time to build this up. Widowmine's going to be crucial in planting themselves in front of the mech army in anticipation for the 1A, the 1 control group move in. And are we going to see that from sLivco?
He's setting up a really, really good concave here. Fungals need to lock this down, preferably on the ramp, I would think here, as he's going to try and push forward here. The Hellbat's tanking a lot of damage. Scan goes down, he sees the Greater Spire morphing in. He knows he has a limited amount of time to prepare for that too. Starpots go down behind it. A lot of drones get roasted out of that 4th base, and it looks like it's going to die off, but the Broodlords are on the way, and he spots them.
He spots them, and he's going straight for them. He's ignoring that 4th base. Behind this, we do have expansions coming down for sLivco on the left-hand side of this map, and we actually see the Thors change their damage now. Instead of looking for Splash, they've changed over to that explosive payload, which does more damage to a single unit, and they're targeting down the Broodlords.
One of them's going to go down very fast here, really, really far range on those Thors. He's coming in from the back here. He needs to clean this up. He's going to get a lot of those siege tanks in the back. Other Thor's going to be able to fall as well. So much firepower here from the Zerg, trying to clean up from every single angle, but he falls back.
Yeah, he falls back here. These units are 2-2, remember. I'm not too sure if falling back was the right decision. He should have been going in there. Very surprised that he pulled back, and he will clean this up.
I think you're right. I think he lost more Broodlords, but look how many drones still died during all of that. 37 workers have been killed off here for Lucifron. So sLivco trying to recuperate those losses, but still 25 drones in production. Oh my god.
And there's a lot of army left here at home for Lucifron, of course. A small little scary window before the Vikings come out, but still I feel that Lucifron should be okay against this, and will be taking a 4th base momentarily. Hellions, though, on the right-hand side of the map, if that's the fast little units I think they are. And yes, they are making their way towards the drone line here. Not the 4th, they need to move towards the 3rd, and they could pick up a lot of kills.
They really could. 2 more Broodlords morphing in. Oh, but the Mutalisks and Roaches swing on in here for the clutch defense. Very good positioning here by sLivco, and look at this, he's just expanding everywhere. He's anticipating some kind of weird, wonky base trade scenario, making sure that he's well bolstered with a lot of Broodlords, but Viking production is now on the way for Lucifron.
Yeah, remember the one thing that that's changed from Heart of the Swarm to Wings of Liberty is the armor, for the air.
Yeah.
The vehicles on the ground, in the air, in the sky share the armor upgrades here, so they already start with +2. It makes the transition smoother. They don't just get beaten down easily by Corruptors as they used to do. So the army that we have for Lucifron is relatively strong at the moment, and now taking a 4th base, harassment should definitely try to continue here with Hellions running around the map left and right against the slow immobile army. But sLivco's going to play what he knows best. Infest a Broodlord. This was his style.
Yeah.
That he, achieved the great results that we saw throughout the IEM season already this year.
Yeah, he's found the windows to it, but speaking of windows, Lucifron finds one at the 3rd base, killing off more drones, and, well, it's going to get cleaned up eventually, but now it's rocketed up to 46 drones killed here for Lucifron, and he's found one of the hidden bases.
That's right here. Well, Lucifron not really changing too much of his play from Wings of Liberty. A little bit of a difference, but not too much. And now we are going to see these Roaches just kind of kill themselves, unfortunately, as sad as that sounds. They've become a little bit useless in this game.
Yep, they've served their purpose. Oh, well, he's going to turn back for now. I think maybe he's going to find another angle of attack.
Yeah, he definitely wants to trade him off, just looking for the best possible opportunity here. As another scan does go down for Lucifron, seeing those Broodlords, and he makes his move.
Well, yeah, he is going to that base relatively. Oh, nice fungal. We'll be able to get a few more locked down on that, but again, the armor is helping out quite considerably against these Mutalist bounces. Pushes in with some more Vikings once again, trying to take out a lot of the ground army, but the Vikings are not that numerous anymore, and that's a lot of Broodlords barreling down on this mech force.
Yeah, that's a lot, and there's really not that much there for Lucifron anymore. He lost that force relatively fast here. We do have good micro from these Vikings, trying to do as much damage as possible.
Trying to get one more. We'll get that Mutalisk, but there's a lot of fungals there left over, and he will lock them down once again. One does fall. But at any given point, there are 3 Vikings on the way. But again, sLivco behind this, with his good economy, he actually has like 8 Corruptors on the way. So that should be enough here to be able to thwart the Air Force of Lucifron.
Yeah, I feel Lucifron's in a bit of trouble at the moment. As we see the upgrades tab there, and they do have their +1 attack. The Vikings, that is. But there are turrets. There's a Planetary Fortress tank. So even though he doesn't have the most amount of units here, we'll see if he can hold on to it, especially while trying to take a 5th. Viking control has to be perfect.
This is watching Wings of Liberty versus Heart of the Swarm. As for now, sLivco still barreling down on this 4th location. Vikings come into the fray, but they will get focused down pretty quickly by those Corruptors. Takes one of them down. No fungals land on these Vikings. Just yet tries to catch them. Gets 1 or 2 for his troubles. And still trying to kill off this 4th base, but the Planetary Fortress holding strong with repair. All siege tanks on the way to try and kill off what they can. And actually a lot of infestors are dying.
Yeah, a lot of infestors are dying to these tanks here, and the Vikings remain alive. The Planetary Fortress does fall, though, which is the most important thing here for sLivco, and he will want to retreat, recuperate his forces. The Hellions get shut down at the same time. And that's a win for sLivco. That's a massive win in this series, currently falling behind against Lucifron in the first game. But he's looking to tie up the series, going to, like I said, to what he knows best, which is the Broodlord Infestor composition.
Yep, he knows it very, very well, and Lucifron's having a hard time against it here. He's getting ship weapons for his extra Vikings that are on the way, as well as ton more Thors and Hellions, but his economy is pretty crippled right now. sLivco's isn't looking too amazing either, as he did get 1 base killed off, and he hasn't been able to populate the top left-hand base, but still, he's looking in a very good position with that composition.
Yeah, the one thing we really haven't seen from Lucifron, and to be honest, I don't think he has had the time, more so than anything, is the Ravens being brought into use. They don't need to research the Hunter-Seeker missile anymore. It is a cheaper spell to use, but he hasn't had that opportunity yet, because you're so gas-intensive on getting that 4th base up, adding the Vikings, adding extra starports. He hasn't had the time here. Maybe we'd see that if the game had gone longer. But Lucifron does continue his harassment, but he's still in a bunch of trouble.
Always trying to find holes with these Hellions. A nice fungal will lock down a lot of these Vikings at the same time, though, so the Corruptors can have their way with them. And I mean, for now, Lucifron really has to find good angles. This isn't a bad one, actually, catching a few Broodlords here and there.
Yeah, that's really good for him, actually.
And even though another fungal actually going to lock down some more Vikings, and really, really pinning these down. If these Vikings go down, the Broodlords are going to clean up the rest. Looking kind of bad, but still microing back where he can. There's not much on the ground for sLivco, and he doesn't really need it as long as the Broodlords are retained.
Yeah, the Queens are transfusing the Corruptors, which are finally beating down these Vikings. And once the Vikings fall, there's just nothing to stop the Broodlords, unfortunately, here. And it has been a long, drawn-out mid to late game here for Lucifron. But I feel it's coming towards an end now. This army, the disadvantage that Lucifron went into upon fighting this, has just been too much.
Yeah, way too much. The Broodlords being very, very useful here, even raining down a little bit of havoc on that 4th base, try and kill off what they can, maybe get a few SCVs here and there. But still, with more Corruptors on the way to combat any kind of Viking numbers that would come out, just making sure that the Broodlords can continue this assault. And, I mean, he's doubling the supply right now of Lucifron, so sLivco in a phenomenal position in Game 2.
Yeah, we've seen 2 more starports being added on, but upon losing this Planetary Fortress, there's just not enough income for Lucifron in this game. He's dropped to 60, 70 supply compared to 160 from sLivco, and it's only going to keep getting worse. GG's call, the series is tied up.
Very, very well played here by sLivco in game number 2, tying it up after what seemed in game 1 to be unstoppable odds there for Lucifron. He manhandled sLivco in game 1, but sLivco brought it back.
Yeah, that's right. And well, sLivco brings it back. A very important step for him in this tournament. Game 1, day 1, the first group. And now we're going to have to see if Lucifron can come back and win the 3rd game here. So let's go ahead and pass it over to our amazing Alice's desk with QXC, Jorisar, and Harston.
Thanks a lot, guys. We're here at the analysis desk. Pretty entertaining game number 2 there, it has to be said. There was a lot of stuff, especially towards the late game. But for now, let's take a look at, talk about a bit how that game started. Of course, we had that Reaper opening with the bunker coming down from Lucifron. What did you think of all that?
That was a pretty standard opening in this matchup. Lucifron didn't really cut much to make that happen. Builds the barracks in his main, gets the gas kind of at the normal timing. So he's not committed to do a huge amount of damage. I felt like sLivco had a bit of an overreaction there. He builds the Spine Crawler, he starts making a bunch of Lings, transitions into the Roach Warren. Reapers without their bonus damage against light are really not that scary in a head-on fight. Their utility, their strength is in the harassment. They can fall back, they can regenerate their health, they can continue to do more damage, they can get scouting information. And sLivco treated it a little bit like it was a Wings of Liberty Marine bunker rush. You need a spine crawler, you gotta wait a little bit. Like, one Reaper in a bunker, you can get 6 to 8 lings, and you can A-move it, and you can kill the bunker.
With a couple of queens, yeah.
No, even without the queens.
Yeah.
The Reapers without their bonus damage against light just do so little damage that you can just kill those bunkers with a small number of Zerglings. Use the queens to zone out the Reapers and prevent yourself from taking a lot of economic damage. And then the counterattack from sLivco went quite well for him, I think, in terms of how well it could have gone. I really expected, I think if Lucifron walling in is a Widowmine's best friend in terms of defense, because the Widowmine is completely dependent on getting those big shots off. That timer is on a 40-second cooldown, and so if he can wall in, keep those roaches at the front, one or two Widowmines go off, the roaches are stuck there, he's repairing behind the wall, 2 more Widowmines come out, you can pause there, and then all of a sudden those roaches aren't getting into the natural. They're not really killing SCVs as easily. You can micro back and all that things. But because the roaches got in, they were able to do so much more.
And then, of course, there was that one big Widowmine hit, of course, did a lot of splash damage on the SCVs. But then we saw Lucifron move out with some Widowmines towards the natural as well. We actually got to where we want to go. But just briefly, Lucifron's pushed back out into the natural with the Widowmines. We were talking a fair bit about that.
Yep. Pretty important. But let's jump into the replay here. We're going to show a little bit. This is kind of the same push that Lucifron did in the last game. It's like a 170 supply, 2-2 is finishing. Whatever mech units you have, it's a combination of Widowmines, tanks, Thors, and Hellbats. And this is kind of a pre-Broodlord timing. That's the main objective here, is to hit and do as much damage as possible before the Broodlords come out. And we can see Lucifron doing a great job of that. His unit composition here is extremely strong against layer tech. The Widowmines make it very hard for the Zerg player to crash on his position. And let's go 2 times for a little bit here. And then what I thought was really interesting, and this is kind of the key moment where I feel like Lucifron actually starts falling behind, and let's go back to just regular speed, is Lucifron switches to the new Thor anti-air attack, which makes them do higher single target damage rather than their anti-air attack that does splash damage. And you can see Lucifron's focus firing the Broodlords. He's like, okay, I've got the new Thors, I've got this new ability, I'm going to focus fire the Broodlords, I'm going to take them down. And I think this was his critical mistake in this battle. Compared to a Roach, the Broodlord is doing an insignificant amount of damage. And also compared to the Thor's anti-air damage output compared to its anti-ground damage output is a tremendous difference. Thors do so much more damage against ground units. So much more damage that you would never, ever want... We can just jump out. You would never, ever want them to attack air units if they could be killing ground units. And so I feel like Lucifron maybe got a little bit caught up in the heart of the swarm. He was like, I got this cool new thing. It's supposed to be good against Broodlords. I'm going to use it. No. Don't do that. If it's a lot of Thors just against Broodlords, like, it makes a lot of sense. But as long as those roaches are on the ground, you really have to be focus firing those roaches with the Thors.
Yeah. And of course later on as well, off the back of that, we saw as we pushing out a single fungal and sacking a bunch of those Mutas sLivco for the majority of the Vikings allowed the Broodlord just to push in towards the third base of Lucifron. That was sort of the beginning of the end there.
And it was really interesting. So the Thor changes its attack. It's better against Broodlords, but it becomes so much worse against Mutalisk because it no longer splashes. It no longer does bonus damage, and so Mutalisk Broodlord all of a sudden seems like it's a lot stronger. Because the Mutalisk got a little bit better. They're faster. They have higher regeneration. And now if your opponent opts to use Thors to try and counter your Broodlords, then your Mutalisk become much stronger against that army. And then I really felt like sLivco's grasp of the late game mech versus Zerg in Heart of the Swarm was much stronger than Lucifron's. He transitioned into the Broodlord Corruptor Infestor unit composition, which is still very strong. Fungal Growth, although now a projectile and a bit slower, has an additional range. It's at the end of Wings of Liberty, Fungal Growth was down to 8 range. In Heart of the Swarm, Fungal Growth is up to 10 range. And so It's harder to use because it's a skill shot. It's a bit slower. It's a projectile. But if you can use it well, if you can use it like sLivco used it, it can still be devastating.
Now, when we reached that point, of course, when Lucifron did actually push into the third base there of sLivco, and obviously the Thors went down after changing to that high damage payload, what could he have done differently before moving from the fourth up to the third? Is it just a case of if we hadn't switched the Thors, he would have won that engagement, or were there additional things that he could do to better prepare himself for that?
No, I think the strategic mistake was thinking that Thors would be sufficiently strong to deal with those Broodlords. Yeah. It was not that one mode was better than the other. I think he chose the correct mode, but he overestimated the strength of his Thors against those Broodlords. If he had focus fired the Roaches, I think he would have done a bit more. He would have been a little bit more effective in that engagement, but his time was basically up with that push. The Broodlords are out. It's time to go home. It's time to establish a fourth, possibly ninja another base so you can get a little bit extra gas, and then you transition into Viking Raven. And that's really the best answer to Broodlord Infestor Corruptor in Heart of the Swarm. You can also add battle cruisers. One thing that I was really sad not to see was Mass Widowmine as a delay mechanism.
Right.
So one thing that you can do, often in Wings of Liberty we would see Terran players would transition into Mass Hellion while they were building up their Air Force. So the Zerg player has their Broodlords, they start moving on the map, and if the Zerg player is moving up the center, you have kind of siege tanks and Hellions running around the sides of that army and killing bases, doing as much damage, delaying as much as possible. With the introduction of Widow Mines, you have an additional strategic option here. And so what Lucifron could have done is once he realized Broodlords were out, he needed to buy himself time, is he turns all of his factories into Widow Mine production and starts placing them just in random places all over the map. And so what you can do then is make it very difficult for your opponent to move out safely. He's very paranoid. He has to keep a bunch of Overseers, especially when you've got Vikings, which you're going to build anyway against the Broodlords. If you can snipe his 1 or 2 Overseers, it becomes almost impossible for the Zerg player to move out because you never know if you're going to move into a big trap. It's very easy, and this has happened to me a lot of times, where my opponent is like, oh yeah, like he sees 1 or 2 Widow Mines go off, and he's like, yeah, I can move in now, and he moves in, and he can't move in.
There's a lot more.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's like 10 more in him.
Yeah.
He just dies.
Just blows up, especially with air units, the way they clump. It would have been just a huge loss to sLivco if that had happened.
So, a quick question to you both before we head into the next game. Of course, sLivco lost reasonably quickly in game number 1.
Yep.
And then he won a significantly harder fought game 2. Talk us through what he might be thinking right now, his emotional state, and just the actual impact. It's obvious that he's regaining some confidence after leveling the series in a big, long macro game, but talk to us about how that will affect his mood, and will it actually affect his mindset going into game number 3 in terms of what strategy he chooses?
I actually think the most important mindset change is going to be for Lucifron, not for sLivco, because he normally is supposed to be the better macro player, Lucifron that is, but now that he lost the long macro game and won the shorter game, so to say, I feel like he is going to be in a bit of doubt if he has to do some kind of pressure build, or if he is going to go for his big macro play that he really likes to do.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what Harsem just said. Like sLivco did almost the same build in both of those games. Obviously, the openings were quite different because of the Reaper pressure and all that.
Sure.
I think that was part of the reason maybe he didn't get Burrow. Maybe he wasn't planning on getting Burrow in that second game anyway. But he still did 2 base Roach pressure, fast third into Mutas. And in game 1, the Roaches did almost nothing. He was able to defend it no problem. Then the counterplay from Lucifron was so strong, picked him apart. He had great information. And then in game 2, it worked. And so now in game 3, and in game 2, like you said, he got so much information about Lucifron as a player and his understanding of the late game. If I was sLivco, I would absolutely want to go into the late game in that same situation. Usually when you play someone, if you lose in one way, you're going to lose in that same way again.
Makes perfect sense.
When it's in a series like this. And there's whatever you want to account for that, but usually, especially in those late game scenarios, if you have the muscle memory and the understanding of it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. It's not. Go ahead.
It's going to be close to impossible for Lucifron to just be like, okay, so I just need to do the late game completely different.
Yeah, exactly.
In the middle of a series, that's not possible.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually,
he's just not. It's just not a reasonable thing to do to all of a sudden greatly shift your understanding of the late game, particularly when your opponent has such a strong grasp of it. It didn't feel like sLivco and Lucifron were kind of flailing, trying to figure out what to do. It was like sLivco knew what to do, and Lucifron didn't.
Yeah.
And so I think Lucifron maybe will do some kind of 2-base play.
Okay. No, that would make sense, especially if he doesn't want to, like you mentioned, shift his strategies too much going into the late game for Game 3. But that certainly sets us up for a very, very tense deciding game here between these two incredible players. Lucifron, sLivco, Game 3, guys. We'll be right back at the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship after this commercial break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship, ladies and gentlemen. We're just running through a very quick debug error on the Ohana map at the moment, and it looks like that has been sorted and our players are in the lobby. Of course, this is on the gold version of Heart of the Swarm, so there are still debug menus and stuff like that that developers can use. And what happened just now was that one of the players, Lucifron, could see one of those windows when we were playing on the map, and it was a little bit distracting. So we were working through that problem. I believe we're simply going to be playing out Game 3 on the bug map, and we're just going to be ignoring it for now because it doesn't actually affect gameplay, to my knowledge. And we'll be hopping into the game shortly.
Yep, a little bit of a strange conflict there. Not quite sure, but it seems to be resolved. So hopefully we'll be starting game number 3 on Ohana. I'm really curious to see if Lucifron is going to go bio this game, because kind of the thing that I felt when he was going mech is like he used to mech a lot. He was very good at it. Then he felt like, I talked to him a little bit, and it kind of sounded like he felt like people were blind countering his mech too much. So he started going bio. It's a little harder to blind counter that. And then with Heart of the Swarm, he's like, oh, mech is a lot better, so I'm going to mech again. But then he just lost doing mech. So maybe we'll see bio in this game. It's really hard to say.
All right, well, we'll get to find out very shortly indeed, as we are now into the game, guys. It is Game 3, of course. The score is tied up 1-1 on Ohana. Let's pass it over to our commentators.
Thanks very much, guys, at the analysis desk, as we have now game number 3, the conclusion of our first series here for the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship.
That's right. It's been a long time. We do apologize for the delays and the errors that have happened so far, but we're about to jump in to this next map number 3 between these two guys. Who's going to walk away with the first win from both of them in their group?
Well, you want to take that first win. A very, very stacked group indeed. sLivco here posing quite a threat to Lucifron in game number 2. Game number 3 is indeed on Ohana. The players are good to go. Carontes, Lucifron, and VP BenQ sLivco. Let's jump into game number 3. As we do have spawning up to our top left-hand corner here as our early pool player. He goes by the name of VP BenQ sLivco. And spawning down to the bottom right-hand corner here as our blue Terran, currently 1-1 in this best of 3. He goes by the name of Carontes Lucifron.
Well. We have, I think, we actually took a while to get into game there. I think it was a 6 pool from sLivco. Yeah, 6 pool. So 6 pool from sLivco. Of course, if you didn't know, AdaBC is doing the observing here at the Intel Extreme Masters once again. But 6 pool from sLivco versus 11 Barracks Gas from Lucifron. So we're going for Reapers straight away here. He's walled off. And it's not looking very good for sLivco.
Yeah, I mean, in theory here, Reapers... well, this is certainly an interesting development here. sLivco pulling almost off the entirety of his drones, just leaving a few behind to get even more Zerglings out and about. But technically, a Reaper can kite this forever.
It depends. If there's a supply depot down to complete that wall off, as soon as he sees it, and the question is, does he see it? Does he touch the Zalmalgi Tower? Does he go straight next to it? This is going to be the biggest question. Does he touch the Xel'Naga tower? And he doesn't. He doesn't see it. And now the supply depot is coming down, though. That's the saving grace, that he did build it in the correct position at the right time here. And now all he has to do is use that Reaper, build a bunker, pull SCVs, add on another structure to make sure that wall doesn't ever break down. And this is it. This is going to be a defense.
Yeah, the engineering bay up and running on the way here as the Reaper one comes out. But there's a little bit of a hole in the wall there, blocked off now by a SCV that was on hold position. But this Reaper has to do a lot of work here to make this work out.
Yeah, I mean, let's see though, because the SCVs they will be able to, surround. They will be able to hold position. They will be able to protect the Reaper. And at the end of the day, even if all the SCVs dies, there will be mules. There's going to be 2 Reapers. What is there to stop Reapers if all these Lings and drones die?
Not much at all. Zergling's coming in from the other side here. Was that Reaper micro's back? Second Reaper is out now here, adding double the threat to sLivco, constantly trying to chase them down as best he can do, but the Zerglings just cannot close the gap, as the Reaper could easily evade any kind of damage here from being done. And meanwhile, there's another Reaper in the middle of the map just dancing around, running away from a ton of Zerglings. So Lucifron keeping a good eye on this, but he's kind of down in terms of supply.
Yeah, but it's going to be difficult. If a Queen slips out here momentarily, that's going to hold the defense at home. But there are only 2 drones mining back at the base.
One Reaper dies, second one almost got caught by a drone as well here, just constantly microing back, needs to escape. He's hitting, he's hitting the underbuildable rocks. GG! sLivco wins, he gets up in victory.
sLivco knew how big that was, that the Reapers were going to be able to kite everything till the end of time there. So even though Lucifron was down in supply, the 2 Reapers were going to be massive. He lost one in the middle of the map, and then as going to try to go down the cliff, he clicked the plating and it started attacking it, and the Reaper dies.
Oh my god, my head just exploded. How did that happen? Oh. Lucifron has to feel pretty dire about that. sLivco with a very, very strong victory for him in the end, beating Lucifron, who we pegged to be a top finisher here. So that was an interesting game.
That's a bittersweet finish there for Lucifron, having waited, I don't know, 3 hours or so to actually play that series out. I guess we should head it over.
We should, yeah. Over to the analysis desk, guys, with QXE, Harstem, and Jorisar.
You're right,
no! Why? Oh, that was so sad to watch. Lucifron had it. He had it. He was in like everything was going well for him. I mean, obviously, if he had scouted it, that would have been better. But he had the supply depot. He puts down the eBay. You build the eBay like that because it is the building that builds the fastest. It gains the most amount of health per second out of anything you could build. And so an eBay in a wall, you can never DPS it down with Lings and drones. You can never break through it. But he didn't realize that there was a hole. sLivco making the great move, and let's go into the replay. We can see that. Yeah. The mineral walk past the SCVs was so critical here, was so important. Part of the reason that,
it's just that one SCV on hold position, and look at this, there we go, Lucifron getting it into position here, but of course the drones can mineral walk past it, and that's the point where he gains entry into the turret base.
And I think what was more important here than obviously now sLivco has play, but I think this game is 100% won for Lucifron if he plays it out optimally. But I think what was so important about that drone mineral walk is Lucifron did not expect that. He obviously expected the SCVs at his wall to be able to hold it, no problem. And when he mineral walked through, Lucifron's play just started to fall apart. There was no reason to lose the SCVs and try and fight the Lings. Reapers are tickle machines. They are not A-move units anymore. A Reaper in Wings of Liberty would be able to DPS down these Lings so quickly. He's two-shotting them, no problem. You have your SCVs tanking, you kite a little bit with the Reaper, you're doing a ton of damage. That's not how Reapers work in Heart of the Storm. They just cannot fight Lings and drones head-on like this. And so if Lucifron, strategically, what he really needed to do was group his Reapers together, because it's way too hard to control 2 separate units, and then basically just run his SCVs away until he's able to clean up these Lings. Once the Lings are gone, then you can just go back to macroing, and you're playing a game where you're probably a little bit ahead, or a lot ahead, depending on how many drones.
And the Hero Reaper.
This is really...
No!
This is the moment I just put my head down. I was so sad. And basically what happened is the unbuildable rocks at the base of the ramps that Blizzard has added, Lucifron misclicked. His Reaper starts attacking the rocks, and the Lings kill it. And the other Reaper on the map, he just lost track of it and died to Lings.
Poor Lucy. Man.
Yeah.
I felt like he didn't prepare ahead because he thought it was a full wall, or he didn't really realize he could drone walk, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna stop it, my Reaper's gonna kill his Zerglings, and I'm gonna win this game.
Yeah.
And then when he came through, he didn't have any thoughts prepared for what was gonna happen.
It was a shock to the system.
I have never seen that situation, and I open Reaper a lot. I'm actually really surprised that sLivco chose that strategy. I think he was trying to meta Lucifron much more than he was trying to meta Heart of the Swarm.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, Reapers are super common in Heart of the Swarm. Proxy Reapers, like, I'm pretty sure in 8, which is 8 supply depot, 8 barracks, 8 gas, would trash that build. Because it's so much faster. By the time your opponent would have the Lings and drones at your base, like, you've already got Reapers out on the map. You're
like
kiting.
2.
And once you clean up the stuff that's on the map, like, you can freely macro. You have complete map control. He might be able to go back and get a queen, but you're still able to constantly harass that queen because your Reapers can regen. But I don't know. Brand new situation, brand new game.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations to sLivco taking the first series.
Yeah, and Lucifron reacted, like you mentioned. I mean, maybe the building would have been down a bit earlier if he scouted it earlier as well. And so close with that gap, just almost everything not quite falling in his favor. And as a result, he goes down 2-1 in that very, very tense, if quick, game number 3 there. Congratulations to sLivco. We're going to be passing it over to the stage now with Rachel Querco.